Hey everybody out there, this is a little pre-show holler. Y'all share this and let's get some people tuning in, and we'll be right back with the show. How's everybody doing out there? Welcome to another segment, another edition of The Connect, our new show here at the Walter Anderson Museum of Art, where we connect you with interesting and creative people all across the state. So go ahead and drop some stuff in the comments. Tell me where y'all are coming from. And if you have questions, we're going to be joined today by Ocean Springs artist Jerrod Partridge from his studio here in town. So we're looking forward to that. First, as we always do, we're going to begin with a little inspiration from Walter Anderson, who knew a little bit about adversity. And so if it helps y'all, we're going to read a little segment here from the Horn Island Logs, give you a little bit of daily devotion and inspiration from the artist and naturalist and mystic that was Walter Anderson. This is from 1950. I was in conflict with a demon. Wind and tide, the various misfortunate incidents, were only his servants. He was perfectly willing that I should reach the island, but it must be with the uttermost expenditure of strength and endurance. And I'll remind everybody that the Horn Island Logs, which is published by University Press of Mississippi, has been out of print for some time. We are getting it back into print this fall, so you can visit our website if you want to pre-order that at walterandersonmuseum.org. I see some cool people I know here in the comments. Remember to let us know where you're viewing from, and we'll pick up with you in a little while when we take some questions. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to be joined by an artist who I know well and have worked with in the past, Jerrod Partridge. And to introduce him, I'm going to actually let him introduce himself via a video that he posted some weeks ago. But he's a classically trained artist and could be working anywhere in the world and does work all over the world. He has some Italian trips over to Italy that he does every year that I'm sure many of you know about and perhaps have been on. But he's a plein air painter and a studio painter. He creates in different atmospheres. And a couple weeks ago, we had a plein air week of painting across the coast planned with Jerrod and some other artists and the museum. And unfortunately, we had to postpone that. But Jerrod went out on his own and painted across the coast. So I'm going to show you a little video of him apropos of Anderson's weather-beaten journey out to Horn Island, and this is Jerrod talking a bit about the elements.
Good morning. I'm out at Gulfport Harbor, Jones Park, and it is super windy. The rain may be coming in. It's too windy to put up my easel, but I'm going to try and paint just with my canvas in my lap. It's not a beautiful day, but we don't just paint beautiful days, because that's a false reality. It's not what this world is about.
So we don't just paint beautiful days, Jerrod. Now we've got you on screen. Tell us a bit about what it is that inspires you to paint outdoors and maybe what that week out there painting was like a couple weeks ago.
Hey, Julian. It's great to see you, my friend. Yeah, painting outdoors is... I think it's all about the connection that's made, the experience. Far more about the experience than it is about the final product. We all enjoy going out and experiencing beautiful days. And it's tempting to only go do that. But there is something about going out on a challenging day that that pushes you to notice things a little different and react to it, painting in a different way than you ever would. So that painting that came out of that day painting in Gulfport has a much different feel than any of the others from that week, just because I couldn't set my easel up. I had to paint in my lap. Even with the painting in my lap, it was blowing everywhere. I was being pelted with sand and rain, and I don't know, but experiencing that's nothing like going through a hurricane on Horn Island like Walter Anderson did. But experiencing the weather and allowing that to be a substantial part of the piece is what it's about in going out and painting outdoors.
Yeah.
You can paint in the comfort of your studio. You can take a photo and come back and take your time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's an experience that's had when everything is changing constantly. So you really are having to get the impression of what's there because it's not sitting still. It's not catering to you. You're having to watch it and pay more attention.
Yeah. Well, what is it about Mississippi and here on the coast? Because you've lived in Jackson for a long time and then came down here to Ocean Springs. I guess what is it about Mississippi or this environment that affects you? And then on a more kind of a approximate level to this current moment, what's it been like being in the studio and not being able to get to go as many places, at least with the family, during this pandemic?
Yeah, so as far as Mississippi goes, we did live in Jackson for a long time. I grew up in Mobile, so really close to where we are now. But we also lived in New York City for a little while. I went to school in London for a semester, and so we've been able to travel a good bit. But Mississippi has provided a really unique experience for being a full-time artist. I didn't, even when I started doing this as a profession, I didn't realize the kind of support that I would get. We, as a lot of people know, we have a lower cost of living here, which makes it a bit easier to do. But the main thing has been the amount of support that I've gotten from the community. Just tremendous amounts of support and encouragement from starting with the community in Jackson, and they continue to really be supportive and encouraging. And now the community down here on the coast. We've been down here for about 3.5 years now.
That's great. And we've got people tuning in from all over the place. We've got somebody from Uruguay and, of course, Ocean Springs and North Mississippi.
Sure. So
thank all y'all for being here. We wish we could transport ourselves to your environments. Turning Jerrod to Walter Anderson, we're looking at one of his pitcher plant drawings right now, which was one you mentioned to me that you had an affinity for. How has Walter Anderson, or how does he influence your life and work?
It's hard to say exactly. I was first introduced to his work when I was in high school. Even though I grew up in Mobile and was so close to Ocean Springs, I didn't have a whole lot of art exposure when I was growing up. I didn't have any kind of art classes or anything. I just knew I loved to draw. So when I was in high school, somebody told me about him, and I started looking at his work. I did a little term paper on a comparison between William Blake and Walter Anderson that was pretty enlightening. I'm sure the paper was terrible, but looking into him more was a lot better, a lot more. It was very interesting.
Do you remember the thesis? Do you remember the thesis of that?
Yeah, some type of term paper. Yeah, I don't know.
What was the connection? Both of those guys are thinkers, and Do you remember anything that stuck out?
Well, I think it was just there was the comparison of the poetry, the writing, and the spiritual aspects of the work. There was a lot of, even though Blake didn't use exactly the same style of drawing, there's a lot of repetition in his work. If you look at some of his figures, where you see linear repetition in ways that are similar to Walter Anderson.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago, so I don't remember. I don't remember what I wrote.
So we're looking at your studio now. So you don't have to pick up the camera, but kind of give us a sense of where you work, orient us into your space.
Yeah, I have a studio in our house. It's I don't even know the size of it. It's not that big, but it's enough space for me to work in. It has decent light, but not ideal. As you remember, in Jackson, I had built my studio in Jackson and had what felt like a pretty ideal space to work in, and have not been able to match that since we've moved down here. But this is a very workable space. I have a table set up kind of in the middle of the room that I have all my prints and all laid out on right now. And then I have behind me, I have a big piece of sheet metal that's attached to the wall that when I work on the handmade paper, I can tack the paper up with magnets to work on the wall itself. So these bigger pieces, when I work on the handmade paper, it's usually bigger pieces, and they don't fit on an easel very well. This piece here is about 55 inches by 55 inches square, so it's a sizable piece. This one here is about 45 inches tall, I believe.
Yeah.
So they work really well, being able to just stick them straight onto the wall.
Well, that's something that people who know your work are familiar with, is that you paint on handmade paper. And right now we're looking at a detail of the palmettos, which I don't know if those are on handmade paper or not. But looking behind you, you can see it would be almost impossible to work on those on easels. But that's a whole different part of your process, which is, it necessitates studio work. You might be out in nature, but then you're coming home and you're making paper. And kind of give us a sense of contrasting the plein air stuff with what you can do when you're back home, and how that handmade paper came into your process.
Yeah. So when you're working in plein air, usually you have to work pretty quick. Your time is very limited. I always feel like, especially with plein air, that light is the subject itself. Light is what you're trying to capture, trying to portray, and there's a very limited amount of time during the day that has a similar light. So you're just limited when you're out there. You have to work quick. You have to try to capture it. And you can go back out another day and work on top of it, and I will do that. I'll start a painting one day, and then if there's another day that has a similar light, go out at the exact same time and try to further it along. So the finishing a painting in one sitting is actually a pretty new thing for me to try to do. Just in the past, I guess really just since we have been going to Italy for the past 7 years, did I start trying to do one-shot paintings. Up until that point, whether I was in the studio or outside, it was a much more indirect process where I was laying down layers and building on top of it. And then when we started doing these trips, I realized that that was a new skill that I had to learn. And it is a very different process, so it is a different skill to try and finish a painting in 2 hours. You have to approach it differently.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to talk about Horn Island, because that's another project that that you've been a part of, and several other artists as well. And this will actually be the subject of an exhibition at the Walter Anderson Museum of Art. Right when we get out of quarantine, whenever that might be, it'll be what's waiting for folks. Is an amazing collection of work by several different artists. But Horn Island, you're drawing out there, but y'all had the ability to camp too. So I imagine there was a little bit of both happening, where you were able to finish a piece, but also maybe take a little longer with some pieces. But just tell us about the Horn Island project and how that came together and what that experience was like.
Yeah, sure. So the past couple of years, I've gone out with Billy Solitario, New Orleans painter, and he has invited me to go out to Horn Island with him to paint. The first year that we did it, we didn't get to stay as long as we wanted to because this big major storm came out of nowhere and kind of blew us around, and we didn't get much work done. But this, when was it? When did we go out? I guess it was fall of last year that we took our last trip out.
Yeah.
And it was weather-wise, it was a perfect situation. But we all went out with the intent of, or knowing that this show was coming up. We went out to work on either pieces for the show or to be inspired to create pieces for the show. So yeah, I did quite a few studies and quick paintings while we're out there. But the pieces that are actually going to be in this show at the museum, this is one of the pieces. So I wanted to do these pieces on handmade paper because I've been working on handmade paper for about the past 10 years. And so I'm having a museum show. I wanted it to really represent the kind of work that I've been doing, a bit more than the small plein air pieces that I was doing actually on the island. So we went out there, we camped, we sat around the fire and talked about art and just really built bonds with each other. Did a lot of drawing, a lot of painting. Tried some fishing, but it didn't go so well. And then brought it back, and more than anything, brought back ideas for what I wanted to do. And so for the pieces that I'm showing in the museum, I'm changing the perspective from a straight-on seeing the vast view of Horn Island to looking down at some of the more intricate kind of details that's going on. If you change that perspective to looking down instead of out.
Yeah, totally.
So the piece that's right behind me, one thing that's neat about the island and kind of along the coast here are these old stumps that kind of peek through the water. And you see it a lot out there. It's just trees have been knocked over by hurricanes or whatever, and you've got these little stumps that peek up, almost like little people standing in the water. And so the color of the water, the light reflection, the reflection of these dark little shapes. I wanted these pieces to become even more about the design than about the representational image. They are still very much paintings of representational, actual objects, actually observed things. But I just wanted to take a bit heavier-handed approach to spending time on design, on color, on structure, backing off on just really clear observational representation.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting to think about. Art is fundamentally a representation, but it's also an echo. It's another thing that doesn't necessarily have to be a facsimile of life. It's meant to perhaps contain something about what it means to be alive. And if you think about Walter Anderson's work and, the broken lines, the negative space, that's such an important element. And I know we see that in your work too, the way you're able to bring, the experiential aspect of being in the day and in the moment and coming out with something else. And I wanted to talk about prints too. Anderson was a prolific block printer, and that has a whole other meaning if you think about propagating work even more widely and taking one moment of creation and making it real for not just one piece, but for several. And so you've got a print series also that you've begun. Tell me about that and kind of how you execute that. I believe they start with drawings, right?
Yeah, and it did start with the fact that I absolutely love drawing. Drawing is my top favorite thing, and a couple of years ago we were at the Walter Anderson Museum, and Tony DeFada, your education director, showed us this quick, easy little way of making prints, and making little block prints. And I have not had much experience doing printmaking, and so it's kind of an eye-opening way. He made it very accessible. Like, oh, this is something that is not so involved that I can't even jump in and try to do it. So I had that experience with him, and then last year marked my 10-year anniversary of being a full-time artist, and I wanted to send a thank you note to people who have been influential, or people who have collected my work over the years, people who have really helped this thing keep going. So I kept racking my brain of what is a gift that I could send to them? What's something that I can do for these people who have made this work? And finally decided that I love drawing. I would love for each one to have a drawing, so I can do a drawing in this way and replicate it, print it, do different colors, use different papers, so that each one is definitely an individual, unique piece. It's a hand-printed piece, but I'm able to do a higher number of them. So that was where it started, and I did that last year, and sent those out and got a really great response. People seem to really like them and enjoy them. So I've had it going in my mind that I wanted to do more of these, a further series of looking at the flora, the plants. I love plants. My family jokes about how addicted I am to plants. But so I love the native plants around here, but then also some things that were introduced here that are really flourishing as well. And that's where the Walter Anderson inspiration comes, is that he portrayed the natural environment here so well, and I don't want to try to copy him, but there's that inspiration and then encouragement to go out and really experience what's here. Because there's so many. It's fun to just walk through the woods and see what's growing, what's blooming, and what the pitcher plants that you mentioned before. Those are a spectacular, really unique thing that grows here. You go by if you drive down I-10 going east, you'll see fields of these pitcher plants.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that in Jackson we didn't have those. Most of the other plants you might see here or there growing in Jackson, but those pitcher plants are very, very unique.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about love of plants and things that grow. My father-in-law is an ethnobotanist, and not to mention all the Anderson family members down here and naturalists who know all this stuff about plants, and I unfortunately need to know more about what I'm looking at and where it all grows. But it's undeniable that these shapes and forms that just come out of the earth are pretty magical. And then in your case, your wife, Jessie Partridge, who is the proprietor of Maidenhair Floral, I know y'all have collaborated in the past, but she also is, even dealing with those source materials in a direct way and a very ephemeral way, and then you're able to paint them, which I think is really cool. You mentioned though inspiration and kind of encouragement. So before we go to our last segment, which I want to tease to everybody, we're going to play Pictionary here in a minute. But before that, I mean, do you have any message to other creatives out there, people who are self-employed and doing what they can in this time and beyond, just to keep going and kind of have a little bit of persistence and resiliency during the difficult periods?
Well, I wish I could just right offhand be really inspirational, but I'm not sure. Not sure I have it in me. But I will say, this pandemic, where everybody is isolated. On one hand, it's kind of for an artist that gets a lot of pleasure in being by themselves. It's almost like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, oh, I can just be by myself, But I think that may be a little bit of a dangerous thing. We have to resist. We have to resist that disappearing from society. I'm not a big fan of technology, but technology has become the way that we can connect, like what we're doing now. And so for those of us who tend to go sit in the corner by themselves, I think it's really important that right now we step out of our comfort zone and stay connected with people and show people what we're doing. The videos that I did a couple of weeks ago for the plein air event, that was totally uncomfortable for me. Mm-hmm. And you can see the change from the very first one to the last one. I got more comfortable with the process. The first one, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. It was just I got more comfortable with it as it went on. Just talking to my iPad felt very, just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm staring into a soulless camera lens right now, and it's hard to make yourself see the other person beyond that device. But I think if we're able to do that, we're challenged to do that now, then we can come out on the other side a little more connected, paradoxically. And I do want to recognize, you mentioned block printing. Anthony DeFada, our Director of Education, has a great tutorial on that block printing process that you'll find in our videos on our Facebook page, Vimeo, YouTube. And for folks who are looking for inspiration and some creative exploits and activities to do during this time, you can see a bunch of that on our website. We have a whole initiative called Art Plus, which connects our collection to all kinds of different fields of study for all ages. So that was inspirational, and going from that, I think we should play some Pictionary. So that's another activity that folks can do. But we developed this idea. Just I think I was dreaming about it and woke up this morning like, Jerrod and I need to play some Pictionary. So the way this is going to work, I asked Jerrod earlier to get some ideas from his children, and then to come up with whatever those might be. So Jerrod, why don't you go ahead and get your pad ready, and I'm not going to time myself, but I'm going to try to do it as quickly as I can. And if y'all want to comment in the comments there while he's drawing, we'll see how correct you are. And so Jerrod's going to set that up.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say how bad this is going to be. It's funny. Everybody always expects a little bit more than they should of my quick drawing abilities. But my youngest son, Elliot, he's 9. He has given me the challenge of what to draw. And it is going to be a challenge. And I think everybody's going to get a big kick out of watching me really do a silly-looking bad drawing.
All right, I've got my thinking cap on.
Yeah, so we'll see if you can figure it out. You tell me when to go.
All right, I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Hindenburg. No. Oh, goodness. Okay, we got a duck. Got that part. A French duck.
Uh,
A duck with an acorn cap on his head, maybe. All right, and a bow tie. I like bow ties. All right, duck. A French duck with a bow tie. With no arms. Oh, wait, he's got a wing. Anthony DeFada says taco. I think that's not a taco. Duck tacos, I guess, are things. All right, it's not Daffy Duck, right? Or a Donald, I mean.
there you go.
Okay, Donald, good. Is he doing something? Is this part of it too?
Yeah.
All right. So we got Donald about to get hit in the face with a beach ball.
Close.
Oh, okay. Basketball. Donald Duck getting hit in the face with a basketball.
There you go.
Oh, yes.
All right. Here's Elliot.
Hey, Elliot. Good job. That was a good one. How'd you come up with that? Oh, man. Well, Jerrod, that was wonderful. I'm glad we were able to end it on to see your handiwork and your line work in present tense. So I appreciate you you spending time with us. Let folks know.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I mean, people should be supporting artists. So if folks are interested in what you have and what you've made, a lot of what's around your studio is available. So how can people get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yeah, they can look at my Facebook page or my Instagram page to see a lot of images. These prints I'm still working on. They will be available soon. I'm working on getting a set of 4 before I really lay out how they're available. So I'm still working on those. People can see them again on Instagram and Facebook as I post them. And we will continue to post other things that are available. But people just can contact me if they're interested in anything that they see. Also on my website, this is jerrodpartridge.com. It has paintings and drawings that are available. They're marked available on the website.
Wonderful.
You can't purchase it through the website, but they can contact me to purchase it.
Great. Well, I'm gonna give you the chance to say goodbye to everybody out there in Mississippi and the South and in South America, everywhere. So go ahead and tell them good luck and goodbye, and then we'll sign off.
Hey, I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I hope that you are being fulfilled during this quarantine time, and I hope that it passes quickly. But I appreciate you spending time watching us and laughing with us, hopefully. At us, not with us, probably. But I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Jerrod. Be good. All right, y'all. That was it for this episode of The Connect. As always, we will keep you posted on the next upcoming episode. And if you have suggestions of folks we could talk to, this show is going to continue to connect us with artists, with community members, with culture seekers from all over the map. So we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, be inspired, stay safe, be well, and enjoy the day. Thank you.